There's a moment most people never talk about. The moment when you have absolutely nothing left to lose. No safety net, no backup plan, no one waiting to catch you. Most people freeze in that moment, but every once in a while, someone takes that emptiness and turns it into fuel. This is the story of what real success looks like when it starts from the ground floor. Not with investors, not with family money, not with a lucky break. Just a person, a decision, and a level of quiet stubbornness that the world eventually couldn't ignore. Starting with nothing isn't romantic. It's uncomfortable. It means making phone calls people don't return. It means working jobs that don't reflect who you know you're becoming. It means watching others move fast while you feel stuck. But researchers who study resilience have found something counterintuitive. The people who build the most durable success are often the ones who started with the fewest advantages. When you have resources, you rely on them. When you don't, you develop something more powerful, resourcefulness. And that shift in mindset turns out to be one of the most important predictors of long-term achievement scientists have identified. The first thing he did wasn't impressive on paper. He picked up whatever work was available and said yes to almost everything. Not because he was desperate, but because he understood something that took most people years to figure out. Every skill is a brick, and right now he was just laying the foundation. What's fascinating about early-stage builders is how differently their brains begin to operate compared to people in comfort. Neuroscience shows us that constraint actually activates creative problem-solving in ways that abundance simply doesn't. When the comfortable path is removed, the brain starts finding routes that were always there but never noticed. He started noticing things. Gaps in markets where people needed something and nobody was offering it well. Moments in conversation where people expressed frustration about problems that went unsolved. He wasn't studying business formally. He was studying people, which turned out to be far more valuable. This observation phase lasted longer than most people would be patient enough for. But patience in the early stages isn't passive. It's one of the most active, strategic things a builder can do. You're gathering data. You're learning the landscape. You're waiting for the right moment to move, not because you're afraid, but because you're ready to move correctly. The first real attempt didn't work, and this is the part of the story that most people skip over because failure feels uncomfortable to sit with. But failure at this stage isn't a sign you chose wrong. Anthropological research into entrepreneurial cultures around the world consistently shows that the people who ultimately succeed treat failed attempts not as endpoints, but as feedback. He adjusted. Not dramatically, not with some cinematic breakthrough moment. He made small, quiet pivots based on what he'd learned. He changed his approach to customers. He changed how he communicated his value. He changed the way he spent his time each day. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the needle started to move. There's something important about that word, slowly, because the world tends to celebrate speed, the overnight win, the viral moment, the sudden rise. But when you look at the underlying data of sustainable success stories, nearly all of them have long, unglamorous middle chapters that nobody filmed. By the time things started to genuinely grow, he had developed something money can't buy and can't replace. Competence forged under pressure. Not theoretical knowledge, not credentials hanging on a wall. Actual, hands-on, battle-tested ability that made him calm in situations that would rattle someone who had always relied on resources instead of skill. Psychology research on confidence draws a sharp distinction between two types. There's borrowed confidence, the kind you get from external validation, titles, or wealth, and then there's earned confidence, which comes from surviving difficulty and discovering you're still standing. The second type is far more stable. It doesn't collapse when circumstances change. He carried that earned confidence into every conversation, every negotiation, every decision. People could sense it, not as arrogance, but as groundedness. He wasn't performing certainty, he had it. And that quality, more than almost anything else, started opening doors that hadn't opened before. The relationships he built during this period weren't transactional. He genuinely invested in people. Not because someone told him networking was important, but because he actually cared about the humans around him. And here's what science tells us about that distinction. People are surprisingly accurate at detecting whether someone values them or values what they can offer. Authentic connection creates loyalty. Performed connection creates nothing lasting. Those relationships became his infrastructure. Not investors, not loans, not expensive advertising. People who trusted him, referred him, collaborated with him, and grew alongside him. This is a pattern seen repeatedly in studies of first-generation success stories. Social capital, the wealth built from genuine human relationships, compensates for financial capital in remarkable ways. He understood intuitively that the network wasn't a strategy. It was a reflection of who he actually was as a person. And that meant the work he'd done on himself, the patience, the integrity, the consistency, was directly building his external world at the same time. Success, when it actually arrived, looked quieter than he had imagined when he was starting out. There were no fireworks, no single defining moment. There was just a day when he looked around and realized that the vision he had once held only in his mind had, piece by piece, become real. The business was running. The relationships were solid. The foundation was deep. What this kind of journey teaches, and what research across psychology, economics, and human development consistently affirms, is that the absence of resources forces a person to become the resource. Every difficulty becomes a teacher. Every setback refines the strategy. Every moment of doubt, when pushed through, builds a kind of character that comfort simply cannot manufacture. The most remarkable thing about starting from zero isn't the destination. It's what the journey does to the person making it. It strips away everything that isn't essential and reveals what was always true underneath. The capability, the creativity, the tenacity that was there all along, waiting for the pressure to bring it forward. There's a version of this story playing out somewhere right now. Someone working in conditions that don't reflect their potential. Someone making moves nobody around them quite understands yet. Someone who has chosen to trust the process, even when the process is invisible. What human history shows us again and again is that the most enduring achievements don't come from the most privileged starting points. They come from the clearest vision, the deepest commitment, and the willingness to keep going when stopping would be so much easier. The world doesn't always recognize the builder before the building is finished, but the builder always knows, and sometimes that's the only thing that matters.